You are listening to Ace Comicals. I'm Greg, and today I'm joined by my co-host Leon. Let's go! Hello and welcome to this October edition of Ace Comicals. This is episode number 73, and today I am joined by just Leon.
Hey.
Leon, we missed out on you last episode because it was just me all on my own. You guys obviously had to dig me out of whatever trouble I got myself into when the load-bearing stack collapsed and I was, completely buried under the cave of comics, so...
Yeah, it was remarkable that you managed to record an episode and get it out, and it was a good week before we got you out of there. So I actually listened to the episode while you were still down there.
I know. At least I had internet, so it wasn't so bad.
we're getting bottles of water down to you, so it was fine.
Yeah, it was good.
But yeah, it was a good ep, and it was an annoying one because it's like, oh no. Maybe you can do this without us. but yeah, it was good. It was really it was really enlightening to get you out, see some of those comics in the stack, and then have to add more comics to my stack. So you know how it goes.
Yeah, I don't think I could do this without you guys. I think it's hard doing this on your own, talking to nobody. Just talking into the... I think that's the trouble I had, because I've experimented with making videos and things before, and I think the trouble I have is having nobody to bounce off. So it's this is peek behind the curtain time, I guess, for Ace Comicals, but it's hard to talk, for me, to talk at nobody, because I feel like I need a response in order for it to sound okay and to sound more natural. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You've done a couple of episodes by yourself, and they've been good radio. So
yeah, it's always better when there's somebody else though, when there's another voice there. Definitely like having co-hosts around, and you guys do a great job. I need you. Don't go.
Well, you can't be trusted alone.
Exactly. So in between that, I guess we've had this new Joker film that's coming out, or is now out. By the release of this episode, and it looks like Oscar bait. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, Leon.
Yeah, it's an odd one because it's a weird time for us because we're recording on a date that is before we've seen the movie. But by the time the episode comes out, I will have seen the movie.
Ditto.
So then we'll have to wait until the next episode to actually talk about the movie. But I'm interested. I always go in with low expectations, and I hope for the best in each movie. I don't. It's hard these days because the internet, social media, and all that are such a pervasive force that if you spend as much time as I do online, you can't help but be inundated with people's opinions on things, and especially because this was a film that came out at a film festival. Those opinions have been out for a while, at least a month or so. So it's been quite annoying to have to duck and weave all these takes. Yeah. And the discourse has been, in some ways, it feels overwrought and alarmist. And in other ways, it seems hyperbolic. And at this point, I've just muted... the word Joker and hashtag and all that because I just want to watch a movie.
Exactly.
So I'm going in, seeing it in Limax, and I will be looking forward to report back and have a discussion about it because on the face of it, it's quite an interesting project. I've always got love for Joaquin Phoenix, and the Joker's such an iconic character. To tackle them divorced of any connected universes, just to do this sort of standalone R-rated movie is the type of thing that I've wanted these companies, especially DC and Marvel, to experiment with over the last decade or so. So I'm hoping that at the very least this works out well and we get more cases of filmmakers being able to dabble in that area. I mean, I only found out recently that the Birds of Prey movie coming out next year is going to be R-rated as well. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but
we'll see.
At this point, I've not been impressed with most of the DC EU, and I think they're sort of stealth abandoning it to focus on the things that work, and I'm interested to see what they do.
I don't think it's even so stealth. I think it was like the official line that they were actually abandoning like the connectedness. And they were just going to make films. But I think that's something that's been bandied around for a long time now, actually, something that's been out there. As far as, I mean, I'm sure I've seen that somewhere. But yeah, I mean, this Joker film, it's hard not to go in with high expectations with the amount of smoke it's had blown up it already, like you were saying. And although I'm not as present on the internet as you are, I've still this stuff still gets to me somehow. Like I still manage to see an awful lot of it, and it's just everywhere. And I've taken to just completely, ignoring it now, like skipping past it and things when I do, when the times when I do actually look at the internet. And I mean, I'm not as present on the internet that I end up having to mute things and whatever. I've never ever had to do that. Funnily enough, I've never had to like actually start blocking words and muting things because I don't think
because you probably have a healthy relationship with your Twitter.
Well, I hope I do, yeah,
and not a full-on addiction. Like a lot of us. But
I mean, the discourse that's surrounding this film as well, as you say, it's hyperbolic and everything else, but I mean, I actually don't think. I mean, people are discussing this, but I don't think it's any different to the kinds of things they were saying in the media when films like The Exorcist hit. As in a kind in the way the mood is, in the kind of hysteria surrounding it, and thinking it might make people do violent things or things like that. Yeah,
I think the sensitivity comes from I think it comes from a good place. I think that concerns arise around the subject matter and things that have happened in the last couple of years.
It's very different in that way. But I think this is like an age-old thing that happens where a film that comes out that challenges stuff, that maybe has content that people aren't used to, or things that we haven't really discussed in films before and things like that, or content that people might find shocking, and you seem to get this kind of hurricane of discourse whipped up around it because of that.
Yeah, and I think ultimately all of the conversation is worthwhile, and that there is a lot to speak about with a lot of these things, but I find it tiresome when so much of the discourse happens before said thing has been released to the public.
And that's the internet. That's the problem with the internet.
Yeah, like I think that I'll be a lot more interested to see what takes are like after a few weeks of release, when people have cooled down a bit.
Exactly.
And we can actually talk about the thing as like a text and a piece of art rather than this amorphous sort of blob that is it's kind of like it's at the moment it's anything you want it to be.
Yeah,
it's like it's the worst thing ever, it's the best thing ever, and I just want to like deal with it like as a thing, with divorced of all that, and then have us talk about stuff in a wider context once we've seen it. So,
well, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
we'll see what happens.
I mean, I'm going in as a comic book fan, so I'm going to go in as a comic book fan. I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to compare it to what I have known to be the Joker and as the Joker, and I will be viewing it through the lens of how does this stand among other facets of the Joker that I've already seen represented on the screen, and how maybe how it stands as an origin story for the Joker, because it takes inspiration from The Killing Joke for sure, but it's not. It's its own thing, isn't it? So we'll see. Anyway,
and I'm going in as like a fan of the depictions of the character, but also like a fan of like some of the actors who are in it, and it's an interesting project for me, because the reductive take obviously is that it's the Joker by way of King of Comedy, and that's an interesting thing to see. So we'll see how it goes.
But I mean, is that almost not what the Joker is anyway?
Yeah, but I mean, we just haven't had them presented in such a Scorsese fashion. So
yeah. Other than that, I've been working my way through Twin Peaks again. I'm currently working through season 1 and rediscovering some damn fine coffee in the process.
So what's brought this on?
Do you know what? I don't know. I just sat there and I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to watch Twin Peaks again. Got my DVDs out and just started watching it. And then
why not?
I was binging it today. And there's just like revisiting it from the beginning, having watched this post season 3, because season 3 aired last year, didn't it?
Yeah, 2017, I think.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I think so.
Where did 2018 go? Like, I could have sworn it was last year. Anyway, I've got season 3 on Blu-ray, but I've been working my way back through it post season 3, and having like watching it at the beginning for the first time, having watched the end, having watched season 3, like a lot more things jump out at you straight away, and a lot more things just fall and click into place. It's like,
such as,
well,
maybe on a thematic thing rather than a plot basis, because I know a lot of people probably still haven't watched season 3.
That's it. I don't want to start talking about things that happen in season 3 and then spoil it for people. I'm not going to do that. But yeah, like thematically and in the way that the story works and certain plot points, yes, but a lot more just kind of just clicks into place without actually. I think it's better to do it this way round, actually, in some sense.
Well, it's always nice to revisit stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
after you've finished it.
I mean, I would recommend anybody, like, obviously you've got to watch Twin Peaks in order. You've got to watch season 1 and 2, and then the movie, and you've got to watch Firewalk with Me somewhere in between that, or prior to watching season 1. But Firewalk with Me, I don't really know when the best time to watch that is, because if you watch it prior to season 1, you'll find it confusing. If you watch it during,
I think you have to watch it after season 2.
You think? Yeah. Probably you're right. Although it is set prior to season 1.
Yeah, but like the information presented in it, you're meant to watch it as if you've seen season 1 and 2. That's how it felt to me.
Yeah, you're probably right. But yeah, I mean, like, you can't... I mean, but, like, going back and watching all of that after watching season 3, so you watch everything, you watch season 3, and then you go back to the beginning again and maybe just watch the first 2 seasons. But it just all feels so much more connected and so much less... Like, there's things that just click into place, and the first time you watched it, these things stood out as like pieces of a puzzle that you just couldn't fit anywhere, but now all of a sudden it does. So yeah, it's really good. It's a nice, neat thing now. Oh, and that's been my 2 weeks, I guess. That and listening to music on vinyl. I got the Ghostbusters score from the first movie.
Oh, nice.
On clear vinyl with like slime thing in the middle of it, and it's really cool. I've been sat listening to the score, so that's great. It's great spooky music for this time of year, and it's been good to listen to while I've been doing my Inktobers, which I'm already behind on. It's like 6 days in, and I'm already behind. So, I mean, How far
are you behind?
Well, I finished Friday's, but I've not uploaded it yet, and I'm halfway through yesterday's.
Got to get on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm like a day behind. But yeah, I'm doing it, and if I don't get them all up on time, or if you get them in huge lumps, then that's because life gets in the way, and being an adult is a horrible thing.
Have you been following like any of those sort of themings? I've seen a lot of people with like the sort of calendar themes where
Yeah.
someone's prescribed different things to do each day. Because a friend of mine who has taken part, he's following a particular one. Are you doing that, or are you just doing your own thing?
I'm doing the official prompts.
Oh, cool,
from
cool.
the Inktober site, so I'm following the official Inktober words in prompt words, or trying to. But I mean, everyone's got their own. Like a lot of people, everyone does this in their own way. I mean, Daniel Warren Johnson, the artist of Extremity and Murder Falcon, he is doing wrestlers. So he's drawing a different wrestler every day, which is kind of cool. But everyone's got their own thing. So, yeah. Everyone hits this from their own kind of angle. I mean, which is kind of cool, because it's like, here's the prompt words, or not. I mean, you do your own thing, it's whatever.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that it's just like a thing that gets people practicing drawing, gets people practicing art, gets people improving, which is what I'm doing. I'm doing it to improve, because I'm not saying I'm an amazing artist by any feat. I'm not saying I'm great, but I use this as an excuse to practice and improve.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if you've seen anything I've done on previous years, you'll see an improvement.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's always really nice to see, like, and I see yours go up, and I see other friends' go up, and then I see like people that I follow, or I see like strangers retweeted. It's just really nice to see, like, because of the way it's done, like daily. It's nice to see pieces that people have had to just start to finish, get something completed, and often in various different styles of their own style, which is always nice to see.
Yeah, it's nice to get something to brighten up your timeline once a day, or spook it up.
Yeah,
Which is, in my case, it's always some kind of grotesque monster. And the thing I'm doing this year a lot of is taking an ordinary object and then like grossing it up. So like I've been doing a lot of this, like drawing ice creams with tentacles coming out of them, and drawing like weird like just turning food into something evil. Like I've got pizza with like weird stuff coming out of it and all that kind of stuff.
Often tentacles or like spider legs, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, pretty much. That's my thing, tentacles or spider legs. Because I think these are the things that people find the creepiest, and if I draw something creepy, I want people to find it creepy. So I know what other people, I know what you guys find creepy, at least, because you're my audience mostly.
Yeah,
the people that follow me on social media. So I know a lot of you don't like spiders, so I try to spider the fuck out of things. And I guess that's it. I mean, unless you got anything else you want to bring up, Leon.
Just a few things. Since the last podcast or so, I started trying to catch up on some TV stuff. So there were 2 HBO shows that came on during the summer. Actually, one of them's still on at the moment. And that was one of them, Succession. So that is the satirical comedy drama by Jesse Armstrong, who created Peep Show and is a writer on stuff like The Thick of It and various other of those sort of very like high sweary satire comedies. But with this show, it's so I binged all of the first season in like mostly a weekend, and then the second season was a few episodes in, so then I just jumped on and continued the train. So now I've caught up and I have to wait week by week like all the other plebs. But it's a fun ride. The basic premise of it is that you have this family who are billionaires, and the patriarch, I mean, they're kind of a fictionalized version of families like the Murdochs, for instance, like these families where they own a massive conglomerate, run it, and a lot of the family members are in the upper echelons of the organization. And as you've seen with stuff like in the Murdochs in the past, they're often fighting for control of various bits of the company. And it's a really it's a really effective show with that, because there's more drama in it than I'm used to from works that Armstrong has worked on in the past. But it's able to walk the tightrope of tone, because you'll have stuff that is completely brutal to do with the characters or a situation, and the next scene you'll have like two characters who are just hilarious because they're utter horrible people. I mean, the thing is, this show is full of the worst people, because if we're not hanging out with the billionaires who are terrible people, then we're hanging around with the people who are around the billionaires who are also terrible people, because all these people buzzing around power, and even if they're connected via marriage, or they're parts of the wider family, or they're people who have been in the company for a while, or new people to the company, they're all horrible people. And it's an interesting show to watch from that point, because it does make you consider how these people are probably living, and how their machinations work, and how us, the normal people, are like numbers or ants who, like, we're a means to an end for them. Especially because in this show, like the Murdochs, the main thing they have is a big news network, like there's basically a Fox News / Disney stand-in, and they have own theme parks, and the way a small number of people have so much influence on so many, it's they do explore things in quite a dramatic but like humorous way, and I'd say this show is what I would deem like cringecore, because there are certain sequences where, like, other shows or movies, when they're in an awkward scenario where someone's made a complete fool of themselves in a situation, normally you have that, and that's the punchline of the scene, and you move on. In this show, they luxuriate in that awkwardness for so long.
That's kind of like Peep Show. Peep Show does that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was his first show, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think he's honed that to a horrific degree on this, because there are times, like, I don't know if I spoke about on the cast before, but like when I watch a TV show at home, my phone goes down, I sit there, I watch it, and I often don't pause it. And I'll just watch it like I'm in the cinema or something like that. Just no distractions. I'm watching the thing. This is one of the few shows where sometimes after a scene I have to pause it, get up, walk around, get a drink, because I know the next scene is going to be awful. And it's like there's times where it's like just painful. Like you're just hoping a character's not going to do something, or you just want a character to like just shut up, but they'll keep talking and like digging a hole for themselves.
Oh dear.
And it is so painful at times, but it's so good.
Yeah,
it's a weird. The process of watching it is like I'm hurting myself, but then by the time the end of the episode rolls around, like I feel nourished, and I need more. It's a weird relationship, but the show does it really well.
It's like the fact that when I was watching Peep Show season 5, I couldn't watch it without alcohol.
Yeah,
like I had to, like it was so bad. Like I was sat watching it like with a mate. We had it. I think we had it on DVD, and we're just going through it. But we were just sat there like binge watching it, but we couldn't watch it. We were just constantly topping each other's drinks up, just like we can't do this. Can't do this.
Like when you have like a physical reaction, and in your brain, you know. You're just watching actors.
Yeah,
on a set being filmed by people, and all the dialogue is written by a person.
yeah.
But in the moment, it feels so horrible. Like I'm just recoiling in my seat, and
it is.
I don't have big physical reactions to stuff when I'm watching it, but with this show, it's painful at times.
Damn, yeah. I don't know if I'd be able to watch that. I think I'd find it too difficult.
At times, it is like Peep Show on drugs, and because it's a dramedy more than like an outright comedy.
Yeah.
It will bounce to like quite dark family drama at times, but it's I highly recommend it, and I am looking forward to the remainder of the season. There's 2 episodes left for season 2, and I think it's going strong. It just did well at the Emmys the week, was it last week or the week before? And it's I don't know, like I think it's in a way that the perfect show for now, considering the people who are running stuff in politics, especially in America, are like billionaires with their fingers in loads of different pockets. It's I think when the first episode aired in America, I think people weren't ready for it because like, we just don't want to watch a show about horrible billionaire people. But I think it caught on really quickly because people started to see the genius of the show. And there's so many lines in this that are just hilarious in context of the scene. And it's something that I'd highly recommend. It's the acting across the board is just phenomenal. And the writing is just so sharp and so witty that it 2 thumbs up for me for this, and I'm looking forward to continuing it. And that's Succession, and it's an HBO show, so it's on Now TV. And then the other HBO show I've been watching, which is on Now TV also, is Euphoria. And this show is adapted from an Israeli miniseries, which had the same name, which came out in 2012. But this American version stars Zendaya as the main character. And in many ways, this is arguably the best teen show that's ever been made. And listeners of the cast know how much I love teen shows. That's like high praise. And I'm not settled on it, but arguably it is in some ways because this show handles so much like wild stuff. Like this show is a mega deterrent for like wanting to be a teenager, like thinking, oh, it'd be cool to be a teenager now. Like it paints a portrait of Zoomer life, Gen Z life that is I don't know how they survive because I'm so happy that when we were younger there wasn't like Instagrams and stuff like that around.
Oh my god, yeah,
it would have been awful. But like this show is warts and all like teen life in the US, in a way like it's like Skins, but like I don't want to use the rote Skins on acid type thing, but it kind of is because it goes to some places, and because it's HBO, like HBO just have no like content filter or whatever, so it's like this is hands down the worst TV show you could ever watch with your parents. I think you would die from the shame. Like, you would die from the embarrassment. Because, like, this is a show where, obviously, a big thing in, like, teenage life now is, like, people sending over pics of themselves, nude and stuff, and none of this stuff is censored. Like, there's an episode earlier on where they're talking about the virtues and stylings of how to take the best dick pics, for instance, and we see a lot. Like how the show's not pulling punches at all.
What I'm most surprised about is that like, even with all the knowledge of the internet that everyone has and everything we know about how easy it is to get people's information, that people still do that.
Well, the thing is, they discussed that in the show during the montage, and it's pretty much a thing of like this is how we communicate now. Like it's it's a thing where like in a couple of years we just won't even think about it being weird that people are sending nudes to randoms, because like that's just the currency of this generation's life. And it's like fair enough, because I guess like illegally uploading it to like a porn site or whatever is the crime, but taking the picture and having it is not the crime, and it's up to the person. But like they delve into a lot of really interesting things, and one of the things I always like with a good show, especially a good drama, is if it has heart, which is quite a general statement, but generally what I mean is if a show just is like, yeah, this is R-rated, this is like, we're going to, like, everyone's doing drugs and having sex and blah, 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 there's violence, and it's like, meh. But like, what this does is that it gives us a really diverse set of characters. And I mean diverse not just in terms of ethnicity, but or like gender, but more so like it creates a lot of real feeling characters out of its cast, and no one feels like a caricature. Even like the most intense characters, no one feels like a caricature. And it even though it has some melodramatic like storylines in it, it all feels played quite not straight, but it doesn't feel inauthentic.
Yeah.
And that is what makes it really good to watch. And on top of that, I mean, the biggest strength of the show is the filmmaking. Like, some of the filmmaking is unbelievable, especially for a TV show. There are shots and montages and sequences that happen that I'm just like, how did they do that? Like it, and obviously a show that is about the main character Zendaya, that Zendaya plays, is a girl called Rue. She's 17 and she's a recovering drug addict, just out of rehab. And so you're going to get a lot of like effects to do with someone under the influence of drugs. But not just that, they do the really cool thing of like, it's not just, oh, we're doing colors and we're like we're switching up how the scene's lit and we're like flipping corridors and stuff just because people on drugs. What it does effectively is pull you into characters' mind states, and it feels very like emotionally true, and it fits what the characters are going through and what their head state would be. Yeah, and I've been really taken by the show. I think really good young cast, and it doesn't feel like it holds anyone's hands in terms of how it's depicting the story. There's no training wheels on. It's very matter of fact, and it's not really a morally judgmental show, and it manages to tackle a lot of different issues and like social issues and just themes, but without doing it in like a showy or sort of preachy way. And for that, I just think that it's masterful in a lot of ways in how it handles a lot of the subject matter. But it's a wild show, and there's probably like a million content warnings I should put on it. But I would heavily recommend Euphoria, or HBO Now TV, created by Sam Levinson.
Yeah, we should. Well, I don't know if I'd be able to check that out.
Yeah.
I haven't got Now
might,
TV, but it might.
Yeah.
Yeah, might not be totally my thing from the sounds.
Yeah. It might be a bit wild.
Yeah. So, we are moving to the comics now, and the first one on the list is a book called Fatale, as in Femme Fatale, and this is written by Ed Brubaker. The art is by Sean Phillips, and the colours are by a Dave Stewart. Now, this is a book that kind of has the old school pulp detective story, but like in a Lovecraftian source. So that's what it serves you and how it serves it. So basically this is going on the synopsis from issue 1, because there's 24 issues of this. It's available now in its entirety. This is originally from January 2012. That's when issue 1 hit the stands. So a reporter in 2012 stumbles on a secret that leads him down the darkest path imaginable. To a seductive woman who's been on the run since 1935, a mobster who may be an immortal demon monster, and the stories of all the doomed men who've been caught in their decades-long struggle. So, yeah, this story centres around the archetypal femme fatale, who is Jo, as in Josephine, and she is she's like this immortal. She is like the immortal. She's the femme fatale, like this immortal femme fatale who has been through every single type of adventure where you'd find this type of character from A to Z, and has had a lot of people caught in the crossfire along the way, from the sounds of it, and from the reads of it as well. So, like, I love the way this plays out. It jumps between the past and the present day, and it's like a mystery unravelling in real time in front of us. And the way this plays out with Jo, the femme fatale, who is the subject and the focus of this comic, it's like the typical archetypes of pulp horror and pulp detective stories. These noir detective tales are kind of like tipped on their head a little bit almost, or maybe less tipped on their head, maybe less fully uprooted and more probably just crumpled, so bits meet that shouldn't normally meet. And like, it has this real noir detective feel with the narration throughout. Like, you can almost hear the sax as you're reading it. It's like that's how it is. It's like and the art has this kind of like these thick black lines and shadows that, paired with the flat colours, give it like an air of abstraction, as if someone is painting these images in your mind with their words. So in the same way that a noir detective tale is usually told through the narration of the detective, kind of like diary entry style, this kind of has the same thing going for it, as if like you're either reading it in someone's diary, and you're told in a room with someone through words, or you know, you're reading it through a diary and you're having it painted in your head, and I think that works. This is how it works in my mind anyway. It's like this kind of like painted, so it's just abstract enough, but at the same time there is like a distinct realism to it. It still leans heavy on the realism in the way the characters and the environments are rendered, so it works thematically with the narration to produce this effect of being painted in your mind, in a way that you might imagine real people and things like that doing this. So yeah, it's a slow burn mystery horror, and it feeds you questions and answers in unequal parts, in what I would call the correct ratio. I mean, would you agree with me there, Leon? Just enough to keep you hungry.
Yeah, because you've read more issues than me at the moment. I've only read the first issue, but what I found was its strength is it would give you enough to keep you going, but it wouldn't, like, it wouldn't overload you or talk down to you. But yeah, it had those classic noir hooks where you're being presented bits of information as you get deeper and deeper into the whole.
Exactly. It's something that it slowly kind of just like urges you further down the spiral, and like at the end you've just been given enough answers and at the same time enough questions to carry on. So it'll answer something, but as it answers it, it'll give you 4 more questions, and you just keep going because you want to learn what's at the bottom of the stairs and you want to see the forces at work. And it's definitely something I recommend reading, and especially this time of year, it's really great. Something I'd recommend with a good glass of bourbon, actually.
Yeah, like what? Because I read this off your recommendation, but it's a title that has I've heard about, maybe closer to release, or like during the 2 years it was coming out, but I never got around to reading it until now. What was it that put it on your radar?
It's just one of those things where, like, I've known about it, I've seen various websites list it in their top horror comics. I've been it's sort of been around in my consciousness for a while, and I've just thought, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna read it finally, and I just sat down and read it, and it's great. So it's just something that's been ambient for ages, and I've just decided that, you know, now's the time. I'm looking for horror comics because of the time of year it is. I want to read these books, so now's the time. I should just pluck this out and actually finally sit down and read it, and it's really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem super up your alley, it being like film noir Lovecraftian.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's like everything I love, all in one book. It's super, super Greg.
Where you're up to in it, like a question I have, because I was quite taken with the first issue, and I was really delighted to know that there was only 24 issues, which is like that's a nice good run. So I'm looking forward to catching up and completing it. But one of the things, like, it plays with a lot of the like film noir tropes that we've been presented, like for the last century, especially in a lot of classic books and a lot of classic movies. And would you say at the point that you're at, that within that genre, it's doing something interesting or, say, transformative with it? Because I could see reading the first issue what this comic would look like if it came out in the 90s, where it would still be quite cool, there'd be some really cool ideas, but some of the limitations of that femme fatale and men caught in her aura and their lives being ruined can play out and end up in quite a stereotypical and not great place. And it feels like, even from the first issue, that they're doing something interesting with that concept.
Yeah.
Do you think that
they are
continuing that path?
Yeah, I think they are, because although, like, it's obviously these men are caught in her orbit, and most of the time, like, she doesn't even know she's having this influence on them. It's just happening. And it's like she is this, how do I put it?
A force?
Yeah, like a force. Like if the femme fatale archetype was a force, if it was a natural force in the world, this is how it would be represented. Like, that's what she is. And if you think about it, like the femme fatale trope in movies and stuff, is like that's what happens. Like, men get caught in her orbit and they end up in some kind of weird adventure, getting into all kinds of trouble for her, you know? And I think it is doing something interesting with that, in the fact that they're not trying to save her, or she's the badass one. And they are getting involved with her, thinking that they can help her or save her.
Yeah.
But in reality, like, I mean, we're seeing it from their view that that's what they're trying to do. Like, you know, these like noir detective types or whatever, but
they're all like the lead character in their own like film noir or like a detective story, but they all seem like not capable. Like,
in
the first issue, there's a guy who is right at the beginning is like saved by her, who takes part in a thing, and he's like, when he first meets her at a funeral, he is just like taken by her, he can't even move.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then like in a couple of pages, like he is in a hospital in a not very good way, and immediately I was like, because it's a trip, like a crash happens and then you wake up in a hospital and then you move on, but like there's a detail in him being in the hospital. I was like, whoa, this is harsh.
Yeah,
like this comic is not messing around. There are consequences that will like live on. It isn't just a silly rough and tumble type thing. That's
the strength of it, and that's what I love about Ed Brubaker's writing in this. Like, there are consequences and things. Characters carry things with them. Like, as you get further on, you'll learn character that gets caught in the crash, he carries things with him. And it's great. It's absolutely fantastic in that way. And like I said, it does just completely like crumple these noir tropes and sort of like straightens them back out again, and there's something else entirely. So yeah, it is something that I definitely recommend you pick up. And that is, that is top of the list for today. That is FATALE, and that is. Do you say it FATALE or do you say it FATALE, Leon? How?
I say FATALE, like femme fatale.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's how I say it, femme fatale. But like, I people say that word in different ways.
Yeah, when you see it alone like that, it does look super Italian.
Yeah, but that's Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, and Dave Stewart. And it's a great little story. Yeah, actually, there's two. I think there's 2 collected hardbacks out at the minute that you can grab. Maybe 3. I don't know if they managed to, because the first 10 issues are in.
I think they did it
1.
2. So yeah, 1 to 10, and then 11 to 24, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, two deluxe hardcovers. Yeah, you're right. So I mean, they're out on shelves now, so they're worth looking into if you want to read it. That's probably the best way to read it. And that is on Image Comics. So the next ones on the list are, this is us checking back in with something we've talked about on this podcast previously. This is a book called The Plot, which we were lucky enough to get a advance preview of a 10-page ashcan that was black and white in the back of a comic called The Mole. This is the plot number 1, and the art here is by Joshua Hickson, who you may know from Shanghai Red. The writing is a collaboration between Tim Daniel and Michael Morici, and the lettering is by Jim Campbell. Now, with this one, I remember how blown away I was with the 10-page preview as a horror story with its roots in mental illness and the hereditary nature of mental illness. And in reading the ashcan, it was like watching a movie at the cinema, only to have it rudely interrupted when the projector malfunctioned. I think those were my exact words. So, like, I said I was going to have to complain and get a ticket to another showing to catch the whole thing, and that's exactly what I did. I bought the full book. So, it was already stunning in moody black and white, and now I have the entirety of issue 1 as a solid copy, and I really did enjoy this one. I've been looking forward to it since I talked about that 10 pages. Like, that was back on episode 67. And I know that I was saying that I would like the book to remain black and white. Like, I could imagine the full book in black and white because I like classic black and white horror comics. But I think the colours added an extra dimension to it and deepened the atmosphere. This book has autumn and Halloween in its veins. And for me, it just evokes the same mood as The Haunting of Hill House, the Netflix show.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and
so much so.
Oh yeah, massively. And if that's your thing, then you should check this out. And some of the really cool variant covers available for this are homages to classic horror comics. I don't know if you've seen any of them, Leon.
No, no.
There's some really good ones. Some really, really good ones. And this is the thing that, like, I love about this book. Like, it is very much in the tradition of horror stories and horror comics, and it is very much like everything I said about it before, just it looks so good. It was fantastically moody, and it's a really good tale. It's a really great tale. So I guess actually I'll just read you the blurb again. So, in order to receive, first you must give. When Chase Blaine's estranged brother and sister-in-law are murdered, he becomes guardian to Mackenzie and Zach, the niece and nephew he hardly knows. Seeking stability for the children, Chase moves his newly formed family to his ancestral home in Cape Augusta, which overlooks a deep black bogland teeming with family secrets. So this is where the Haunting in Hill House thing comes in. Because it's a house by itself on what we perceive to be cursed land. I think we get that impression from page 1.
And that's the thing, like, as well as Hill House, I got big Lock and Key vibes with this opener as well.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, as the first thing, like the inaugural title of like Vault's new Nightfall line, I think, like, which Vault are doing this thing where they do this Nightfall line now, where that's where they're going to publish their horror books, and it's going to be like a seasonal, yearly thing, where new books come out on the line at a certain time of year every year, mainly aimed at spooky motherfuckers like me. But it's yeah, it's just as the inaugural title, it's like a really strong start for that line, I must say. I mean, I've talked about this before, so you've read it now, Leon, so I want to know what you think.
Yeah, like I was saying, like I definitely got those like big vibes of the book and the show that I've mentioned, but also just the way it begins, where you have what's the name of the uncle character? Who now has the kids?
Chase. Him entering that house. Just the way it's composed. It's the angles that were given. It just feels so. Like, it feels like in that moment that he kicks open the door on page 2. Yeah. Stumbling in a tumult of depression with a 6-pack.
It feels like as he's kicked it and switched on his torch, all the ghosts have like hidden.
Yeah.
But it feels open in that way that when that main door is closed, stuff is going down in there. Like, even if it's not the obvious like ghosts walking around and stuff, it feels like the walls are like moving, and it has that feel where they're going to combine the trauma of, because the house has been in the family for like 200 years.
Yeah,
they're going to combine the trauma of like family legacy and all of that, and do the thing that I like, where they take those themes and make them supernatural. And I think as a setup, it's as you mentioned before, like on the episode we were talking about it, the idea of like inheriting and passing down like mental illness. It's and there's something about it, because you have the sequence where you got a character who it's their 40th birthday, Chase's brother, and the way it's composed, where he is sort of giving out a speech, and when we see like the crowd, even though it's like in a very sort of normal way, you'd like background these characters, you'd have them like similar colors, and then they'd be sort of blurred in the background. It does feel like a void in a way, in that like there's a lack of color between him and them, and or him and his wife and them, that it feels like a barrier, like a bubble. And as he like is continuing his speech and goes like off script and sort of loses his place, you do sort of feel there is this big weight on the family, especially on the two brothers. Like, there's a legacy of trauma in the past that is like scars, emotional scars that they're bearing, and it's interesting that at the same time that's going on, they try to make a connection between them is tried to be made, and at the time, one of the characters is just not ready for it and not in a good place for it, and it's sad to see and it's sad to read, but it feels very true, and when things take a bigger, more overt supernatural turn, it makes you sit up in your seat, and you're like, oh, okay, they're really going there. Okay, they're really going there, and it's a brutal series of events, and it does remind me of the beginning of like Lock and Key, and how the beginning of that story is set up, where there is a tragedy that happens to the family, and like it does have like shades of that, but then just through dialogue we get before then, it feels like stuff wasn't okay already, and like there's the two kids who are now living with Chase, like they were like, one's a teenager, the other is like, I think like a tween or something, and they're already dealing with stuff like just sort of standard behavioral stuff, but it feels already like there's weird family rifts going on, like their relationship isn't, I mean, in a way, like not a lot of families do have a great relationship, and you get a kind of feeling that this guy's a workaholic who's never really with his kids.
Well, and also they only know what their dad knew about their uncle.
Yeah.
Like, what their dad told them about their uncle, and like
they've only seen him 3 times. Yeah,
and they've been getting told that their uncle's a loser their entire lives. So, it's tragic and it's sad, but it's also very, very, very compelling reading. Yeah,
it's a great setup, and just going back to like great panels. There's a panel where Chase receives a telegram giving him like some awful news, and there's a great scene because he's in the house like doing renovations, and he has like a sledgehammer, and there's a great scene of like him just going off with the sledgehammer. Oh yeah,
he goes ape with the sledgehammer to take out his frustrations, and I've been there.
Well, it's captured so well because it's sort of like we've got a square panel that's been split. So the top left is its own panel, and that's focused on his hand holding it, and the bottom right is the end of the sledgehammer. So you get kind of an S left shape, and then it's got inserts with close-ups on his face screaming or like grunting, and close-ups of the sledgehammer. It's just done so, and then you've got the text from the telegram he got running in the background for him, and I think it captures that moment. Like everyone reacts to things differently, but I've definitely been in moments where I've just like a fly of rage over like learning or encountering something awful, and I think it really catches that haze.
Yeah,
which often like only lasts like 5 seconds or something, but it's really effectively captured here.
Yeah, and like to break down again the way that it's captured as well. I think in reference to Shredder in Hell, I've talked about pages like this where you get inserts and things that are happening at the same moment, but shown from shown in 2 different ways at the same time, which is something comics can do that film can't. And because it's such a maelstrom of movement and rage and impact and everything else as he's going nuts with this sledgehammer and taking this wall down, like to show it to display it in such a way, a flurry of information on the page with inserts and full panels and such, and everything rushing at once, like everything would rush through your head at once, the emotions, the words on the telegram, everything else. I think that's a really effective page layout, and I really did enjoy that. Like that for me was like a really clever way to display that, I think. I was really into that. But yeah, this was something else, this book, definitely. So that was the plot. And let's just give you your team again. That is Joshua Hickson on art duties, with writing by Tim Daniel and Michael Marici, and letters by Jim Campbell. And that is on Vault Comics. And that is the inaugural title of the Vault Comics Nightfall line, which is well worth your time. You should check it out.
I highly co-sign that. It was a really like it's a first issue that has its statement just out there, and I feel like people have heard in the past. I usually complain that sometimes I need the trade before I can't just deal with a number one. I'm not getting enough information, and I think that the two comics we've spoken about this week, I think they had really good issue ones, but in particular the plot. I think that it sets up the characters and the stakes and what we're dealing with in this world really well in such a short amount of time. What
I was going to say to you, Leon, if you like having the entire trade available, maybe you should check out TKO Comics. Because they're doing that thing. They're trying to revolutionize the way comics are sold, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're doing that thing where everything's available at once.
Netflix drop.
Yes, exactly. Maybe we should talk more about that actually on another episode, like, because TKO Comics is really interesting, and
I like doing something different to try and see if that works as a model in the industry, and I respect it.
Yeah, I'd like to check out some of their stuff as well, because I've not checked any of it out, but that'll be something to delve into. But moving on from the plot, actually, it kind of like segueing in to the next two things that I've been reading, which is I was inspired actually by the plot to go and read these, because like it inspired me to go back and read some classic horror comics. I mean, that's just something that I enjoy doing anyway, but this gave me an excuse, I guess. So I figured it's the time of year, why not? So
do you need an excuse?
Well, no, not really. I've been back and read some of Marvel's The Tomb of Dracula from 1972, which is just briefly, it's absolutely stellar example of how to build suspense and atmosphere in the pages of a comic. The art throughout like the book has this ghostly fluidity about it, and combined with the realism and the way that fear and emotions like anger are rendered in the faces of the characters, it really is a heady horror cocktail. And I concur with a lot of comics fans in saying that it probably is one of the best horror books. And if you can track it down and read it, please do. Alongside this, I checked out some issues of the horror anthology comics magazine Creepy, which was launched in 1964. These are more reminiscent of the horror comics of EC and the like, black and white, heavy with atmosphere, pages rendered in stark realism, and some of the most detailed and intricate realism in comics art you will ever see, I believe. Like stills from a black and white movie at times, actually. You know, like these old black and white Universal monster movies where they would light things in a certain way and they would use makeup techniques to enhance that.
Yeah, so then that's where you get like the gaunt cheeks or like the intense eyebrows or foreheads.
Yeah, that in comic form on a page in ink. So, yeah, it's really good. And these are like short comic stories, and they're only a few pages long, but they still manage to pack in the suspense and the twists, and they are great reading again if you can track them down. Now,
what's the history of these? Like because it's Marvel, isn't it?
Creepy isn't Marvel. Tomb of Dracula is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So Creepy, it's a horror comics magazine which was launched by Warren Publishing. And it's kind of similar to, you know, like Mad Magazine.
Yes.
Yeah. And it didn't comply with the Comics Code, which was in full force by that point. I mean, the Comics Code was voluntary anyway, but it was the fact that the Comics Code made it difficult for books like this to exist as comics, and they would have to try to be something different. So they was a comics magazine. It couldn't be marketed as a comic, because although the Comic Code was voluntary and you didn't have to comply with it to make a comic, retailers and such would see the Comics Code as a kind of like something they could trust.
Yeah,
and
it's kind of like
things like this. Sorry, yeah, I was going to say things like this get pushed to the side, and people would rather stock things with the Comics Code on them because they know they're going to sell because it's something they can trust.
Well, yeah, because like in America, with their games rating, games always go for mature highest.
Yeah,
and in a few cases where games like has been rated like adult, even though it's a legit rating, stores just don't stock it because it's synonymous with being pornographic.
Yeah,
so like a similar thing.
Yeah, and the like I say, because we had like the pre-code horror comics, which was kind of what spurred the Comics Code into existence, if you like. So that came about because of the content of the pre-code horror comics and people objecting to that and citing it as reasons that for delinquency and things like that, you see, which I find all terribly amusing. But there you go. But yeah, so then we end up with the Comics Code Enforcer and Creepy Comics. It was a comics magazine. I mean, like, I think by the 70s, which is when you had the Dracula comic, I think Marvel were kind of flaunting the Comics Code a little bit, and I don't think the Dracula comics carried. Oh, actually, though, yes, the Tomb of Dracula comics were actually approved by the Comics Code Authority, which is surprising because they do seem a little bit outside of what the Comics Code allows for. I think the rules may have been relaxed a little by then. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's also like the 70s, and as we were saying, general social, political, and like changes in attitudes in the media. I can see like a lot of big things beginning to be relaxed during that era.
I hold my hands up. I'm no comics historian. I just know stuff like Campfire Tales and shit, you know? Like, but I do enjoy going back through these old comics, and I do like to learn comics like bits of comics history is kind of like a little bit of a hobby. So it's fun for me to read these, and I'd recommend them to anybody if you can get hold of them, because I think the Tomb of Dracula still stands up today as a great comic book.
What's the best way to get your hands on them?
Well, Tomb of Dracula is available in an omnibus, which I've got. You got the hardcover volume 1 of the omnibus, which was published last October by Marvel, and that is something that is that's probably the only way to get it at the moment, actually, unless you want to try and find a really expensive copy of an out of print trade or something on Amazon. I don't know. And Creepy Comics, I think these are available. I mean, don't quote me on this, but I think they're available collected. As I think you can buy them like in collected volumes, hardcovers as well, things, because they get re-released. So a lot of these classic horror comics have made it into collected volumes that way. But yeah, they're cool if you can track them down. On from there, this is where like my picks come full circle, because we're talking Bizarre Adventures #1 now, which is a Marvel book, part of the Marvel 80th celebrations. So this was really cool. I sat in the pub and read this the day I picked it up. And it's anthology type with 4 stories. Prepare for the bizarre. To celebrate Marvel's 80th, we're resurrecting one of its wildest creations, Bizarre Adventures. Within these pages, you'll see Shang-Chi take on a martial arts master, Ulysses Bloodstone battle a master of the dark arts, Dracula meet his match, and the Marvel debut of Archwood's Chris Onstad. These adventures will be thrilling, exciting, and most definitely bizarre. So, 4 stories. You've got the Starspawn Sorcerer, which is Ulysses Bloodstone. You've got Evelyn O'Reilly, which is the Dracula tale. You've got How Does He Do It? How Does He Do It, which is the character Black Goliath. Another one of these characters that uses pin particles to change size. And you've also got The Lesson, which is the Shang-Chi story, which is Sebastian Gerner writing. Sebastian Gerner you may know from books such as Shirtless Bear Fighter. But like my favourite 2, first of all, of this were the Starspawn Sorcerer and Evelyn O'Reilly, and they're the ones that I'm going to talk about at length. Those 2 were definitely my favourites, and these Marvel 80th Celebration titles have been really great so far, actually. I've loved these revivals of classic anthology types, and you know, I'd love if they start publishing them again as monthly ongoings, because, I mean, you can probably tell from most of the stuff I talk about, I do like my anthology books. Yeah, like Dracula pops up again in this one, so this is me coming full circle. So
yeah, it's spooky season.
Yeah, exactly. So the Starspawn Sorcerer, which is the Ulysses Bloodstone story, he is Marvel's premier monster hunter. It has some really cool art and some incredible detail in the facial expressions, and the harshness of the environment kind of leaps off the page. It's like sword and sorcery with a cosmic edge. So the blurb in the book here, because you get like a little introduction. In prehistoric times, an evil entity sent a meteor hurtling into the earth, hoping to take control of the planet. One of the nearby early men beat the evil entity's enforcer, but the meteor exploded, killing the rest of the man's people. A piece of that meteor, known as the Bloodstone, embedded itself in the man's chest, making him immortal and turning him into Ulysses Bloodstone in the Starspawn Sorcerer. So this is the first story in the book, and it's kind of like set in the snowy wastes. It's a little bit sword and sorcery. We've got him like a single traveller, like kind of Conan-esque, actually. Yeah, it had this like real doom metal vibe about it, which I dug massively, and it almost evokes the spirit of classic sword and sorcery artwork, like the way the art is. The story has a huge twist for Marvel fans, and I'm not going to spoil it, but it's great. And the colour work in this one is to die for. With the way the glow of the stone in Ulysses' chest is rendered in certain scenes, and there's some great action beats. A couple of pages particularly where Ulysses faces off against an army of the living dead. Some really cool movements, some great snapshot panel work of the action, like visceral swords going through necks stuff and whatever else. And the final battle is brilliant with an excellent twist. It's very expressionistic art, and it's still full of realism, and it has a real classic edge about it. The second story that really struck me was Evelyn O'Reilly, which is the Dracula tale, and it goes leaps towards showing the human side of the vampire. So I will read you the blurb from this one too. Grievously wounded while fighting the Turks in the 1400s, the nobleman Vlad Dracula was brought to a mystic healer who saved him from death by cursing him with the bite of a vampire. In his life beyond death, the nobleman's throne was traded for a new title, King of the Vampires. For centuries, Vlad fought to consolidate his rule over the monstrous underworld and destroy his vampiric vulnerabilities to become a true immortal. But though he became an undead monster, the sensitive heart of the man he once was still sometimes softly beats within. And that is Dracula in Evelyn O'Reilly. Now, this is set in like the late 20s, early 30s, and it's like at a swanky party where Dracula meets a woman who steals his heart. And the art here leans more towards a cartoon edge, as these thick, bold lines and these wonderful colours that pop, and just the whole situation where the way the party goes down, it's just great. Dracula's unrequited love is not who you think she is, and the party's guests are also more than meets the eye, and the clue is in the cover of this book. So the cover of the whole comic, in fact, the cover that I bought is Dracula and this woman who I believe is supposed to be Evelyn O'Reilly fighting a werewolf. The action explodes off the page, and it's just in the crescendo of this fun tale is just absolutely fantastic. It's definitely a favourite of mine. The character designs and monster designs are absolutely wonderful. The script is fantastic, and the art has this really animated quality. It just brings it to life. The other stories were also cool, also pretty great. On a whole, I would have to say the last tale was the weakest of the four. It just didn't land like the others, and it felt quite anticlimactic. This is the Black Goliath tale. How does he do it? And it's possibly a symptom of it being at the end of the book, when I'd already been so impressed by the first and third story. I think when I got to the fourth one, it was a little bit of a drop for me. Sadly. I mean, I don't want to say it's bad because it's not bad. It's just the fact that the others were so good, you know. Yeah. And that's just how the cookie crumbled. I think. If I go through the full list of credits for that, you've got the Starspawn Sorcerer, which is the first story, which is writing by Jed Mackay. We've got art and letters by Chris Mooneyham and colours by Lauren Aff. The Lesson, which is writing by Sebastian Gerner. Art by Francesco Manna, colours by Andy Troy, letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. Evelyn O'Reilly is Michael Conrad on writing. Writing and art by Becky Cloonan. So it's like a collaboration between Michael Conrad and Becky Cloonan. Lee Luffridge colours this one, and Joe Caramagna again on letters. How Does He Do It? Is written by John Adams. Art by Aaron Conley. Colours by John Rauch, and again letters by Joe Caramagna. That's actually the order in which the tales appear. So you go Starspawn Sorcerer, The Lesson, Evelyn O'Reilly, and then How Does He Do It? And the two standout ones for me are the Starspawn Sorcerer and Evelyn O'Reilly. They're my two favourites. And yeah, that kind of rounds off the list of comics. Unless you got anything else you want to bring up, Leon?
No, not yet. Now that Lock and Key has finished, I did want to catch up with Lock and Key, The Wicked and the Divine. Sorry. Yeah. Now that that's finished, I did want to catch up and have a chat with you guys about it. But we might have to do like a little spoilery bit at the end. Yeah,
I think that's going to be like a whole episode in itself, I reckon. Same with Ice Cream Man. Actually, we keep threatening to do it.
Yeah, we need to get these ones out because there's a lot to talk about with both of those, definitely.
We do. And speaking of Ice Cream Man, it's Paul this time. So coming out the 9th of October, which is when this podcast will be available, you've got The Batman's Grave, #1. The world's greatest detective must try to inhabit the mind of a murder victim to solve a case without filling the empty grave next to those of his parents. Can Batman imagine the life of a corpse with a half-eaten face without dying himself? This is by Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch. So Warren Ellis is writing, Brian Hitch is the artist. And it's a maxi series about life, death, and the questions most are too afraid to ask. So it's one of those Batman stories. It's one of those Batman stories.
One of those ones.
Yeah, one of those ones that stands alone, that's going to get collected into a trade and will adorn your shelf. And I'm looking quite forward to that, actually. I like me some Batman. We've also got Dead Legends. The Dead Legends Premier Edition #1 actually comes out on the 9th of October. Something we talked about a couple episodes ago. We reviewed this. This is the martial arts story that I think is absolutely stellar. So I would recommend getting to the shop and checking that out. Go back a couple episodes and listen to us wax lyrical about it. Give you the blurb: a widow seeking revenge, a champion hellbent on losing, a world-class assassin second-guessing her contract. The Dead Legends tournament contains a long history of pitting the best fighters in the world against one another, but this year, these combatants bend the rules and place the future of the tournament in jeopardy. A martial arts throwback series that hits harder than a kick to the skull. And you've got the beginning of... so we've talked about the Buffy comics on this podcast before, but now we've got Buffy the Vampire Slayer Hellmouth #1. Which is the beginning of the first event in the Boom Buffyverse stuff. Whedonverse, as they call it, which is the Hellmouth event. So I'm quite looking forward to that, and quite looking forward to seeing how this pans out. And I really need to catch up on my Buffy comics before this drops. So I've got a bit of reading ahead of me. I'm looking forward to that. Doctor Doom #1. So Doctor Doom now has his own... he's getting his own #1, his own comic. So this is Christopher Cantwell and Salvador La Roca. So Victor Von Doom, scientist, sorcerer, disfigured face, twisted soul, has been spending much of his time warning against a $1 trillion global effort to create the first artificial black hole. Wrestling with visions of an entirely different life, a better future, Dr. Doom finds himself at a crossroads. But what is he questioning? A catastrophic act of terrorism kills thousands, and the prime suspect is Doom. Victor will have to push his unexplained thoughts aside and focus on remaining alive as the title of the most wanted man is thrust upon him. Left with no homeland, no armies, no allies, indeed nothing at all, will the reign of Dr. Doom come to an abrupt halt. So, that sounds pretty cool. Interesting to see where that goes. Seeing Dr. You're going to sympathise with Doom? I mean, it's not the first time you've sympathised with Doom, but you're going to sympathise with Doom.
Do you think it's going to be of a similar vein to White Knight?
Possibly. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. So I'm just here for the ride, Leon. So I'm going to pick this up and see how it goes. And there's some pretty cool variants. There's a Steve Ditko variant, which I assume must be I'm just looking at the list of variants. There's a Steve Ditko variant, which I can only assume must be a print of something from the Wayback Machine. But yeah, I mean that is looking good. We've also got Ice Cream Man number 15, which we're always excited for some more Ice Cream Man. There is Secrets of Sinister House number 1. Now, this one, I believe, is this year's DC anthology book with horror stories, done in the style of a classic horror comic magazine or horror comic. Witness what hides within the sinister house. The DCU's most horrific secrets and mysteries. Travel alongside Harley Quinn, John Constantine, Detective Chimp, Zatanna, the Atom, and others as they face this macabre devastation firsthand. And in the bowels of this dark mansion, we return to the world of the legendary Red Rain to meet once again with the dreaded vampire Batman. Don't miss this year's DC Halloween special, because you do, it'll haunt you.
Dreaded vampire?
Vampire Batman, yeah.
Oh god. What's happened? What happened, Bruce?
Well, you'll have to check out Red Rain, won't you?
You didn't even pause on that. That's why I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
You was like, "Yeah, he's a vampire now."
Yeah. There's a certain line of Batman comics where Batman's a vampire.
Okay.
True story. So yeah, that'll be worth checking out. And I'm going to talk about this, I think, when this in the next episode. It'll be one that I will definitely get my claws into, or teeth, should I say?
Yeah, your fangs.
Yeah. So 1016, we've got a book called The Marked. This is a new one. This is Image Comics. So The Marked, their magic is channeled through their tattoos. The Marked may look like cool young influencers, but beneath the designer clothes, their bodies are tattooed with the magical glyphs of an ancient order that secretly protects the world against evil forces. With no new occult threats, the Marked use their tattooed powers solely for the pursuit of pleasure, until a young woman called Liza creates a dangerous new form of hybrid sorcery. The party is over for the Marked. You'll believe in magic, terrifying, soul-destroying magic. This is written by David Hine. We've got writer-artist Brian Haberlin as well, and Jared Van Dyke on art as well. So this looked kind of cool. I love the cover here, where it's kind of all silhouetted face, silhouetted dress, drawing attention to the tattoos on her skin. That being the bit that pops, because that's the bit where it's coloured on the title cover, and cool. I'm really looking forward to this. That'll be something that I'll be picking up and checking out. We've also got The Mask. I pledge allegiance to The Mask. So The Mask is back in comics. That's right, you heard me. The Mask, as in somebody stop me smoking. Green face Stanley Ipkiss. The Mask. So, years ago, a weird mask of unknown origin and limitless power was buried in the cement of an apartment building's basement floor. Edge City and its residents have all but forgotten the mysterious green-faced killer known only as Big Head. But now, decades later, the bizarre Tex-Avery style killings are happening all over again and are on a collision course with a bizarre political campaign where a homicidal maniac wants to make America green again.
Ooh.
And this is Christopher Cantwell again. We've got art by Patrick Reynolds and a variant cover by Rafael Albuquerque. And this is on Dark Horse. So, another one to check out, I think. If you like the mask. If you like pretty Viridian faces like his.
Cantwell keeping busy.
I know, man. You've got Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman Nightfall #1. Now, I believe this is a one-shot that takes place in the Nightfall area of things. And it's basically, I think it's like what would happen if Batman didn't get the cowl back. So it's kind of interesting in that kind of way. Something that I might pick up being a Batman fan. You've got Something is Killing the Children #2, which we talked about on a previous episode. That is out that day. You've also got something coming out called... Actually, this is October 9th, so I got my dates backwards with this one. But this is Spell on Wheels #2. Spell on Wheels 2 #1. So this is something that missed me the first time. The trio of witches from Spell on Wheels return in this follow-up cross-country series. How did I miss Spell on Wheels?
There's a lot of comics.
Yeah, I know. It sounds really cool. Andy, Claire, and Jolene find themselves back on the road when a dark presence from out west possesses Claire. As they follow the I-10 towards danger unknown, the group grapples with phantoms, family drama, cryptids, and crushes. Kate Leth, Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat, and Megan Levins of Star Trek Boldly Go, and Marissa Louise of Hex Wives and Grumble bring you another chapter in the Spell on Wheels saga. So, I'm like, wait, there's a comic called Spell on Wheels, and and it's about a cool coven of witches, and I've not read it. And I should probably go back and check that out before I read this. But this is just something that caught my attention. And this is how you discover new comic series, nice and organically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something cool to look at. But yeah, Steeple #2 is also out on 10/16. Again, we talked about that previously. It's great. Check it out. Steeple is the one that I did in my solo ep in the last episode.
Yeah.
And that rounds off the pull list for this episode. So that has been Ace Comicals, episode number 73. You can find us at www.acecomicals.com, which is the landing place, hub, helipad, whatever you want to call it, for everything that we do. On there, you can find links to our Twitter, where we are under Ace Comicals. You can find us on Facebook at Ace Comicals. You can find us on Instagram under Ace Comicals. You can find us to listen to us on Apple Podcasts, CastBox, Castro, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. We have an email address where you can get in touch, which is acecomicals@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Twitter, get involved in the conversation at us, talk to us about the comics we've read, give us some feedback. Leon, where can we find you?
Find me on Twitter at Leon Everett.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter under @Batto, that's BATTOU. So, that has been Ace Comicals episode 73, in fact. Thanks for listening. Ace Comicals over and out.